Today, we will be exploring the environmental philosophy of Arne. Arne was an eco-philosopher that coined the term deep ecology. Deep ecology was strongly advocated in the late 1960s and continues to be significant today. Here's a question for you. Do you feel like human beings are more important than other life forms? You may want to hit pause on this video and take a minute to really think about this question before answering it. The history of deep ecology involved the movement from anthropocentrism, which is a philosophical perspective that argues that humans are the highest level of life form in the world, to ecocentrism, which is a philosophical perspective that all life forms, both human and non-human, carry value in itself and are perceived as useful and important. So at this point, you're still probably wondering, what is deep ecology? So Arne wasn't exactly keen on establishing an exact definition to the term that he coined deep ecology, but he did create principles with George Sessions to explain the essence of what deep ecology is. These principles essentially reflect that humans are not more important than other non-human life forms. There are 8 principles of deep ecology. The first principle touches on the value of growth for both human and non-human life on Earth. This value is both intrinsic, which is value in itself, and inherent, which is value that is absolute. These values are therefore separate from the purpose of the non-human world being useful for human use. The second principle states that all life forms are significant in contributing richness and diversity. To go more in depth, it states that no life form is higher than the other, and that one life form does not merely exist to serve so-called higher life forms. The third principle states that humans should only have the right to reduce the richness and diversity referred to in the prior principle to satisfy vital needs. Vital needs are such that is required for survival. Moving on to the fourth principle, which touches on how in order for human life and culture to grow long term, there must be a significant decrease in the way human life lives, minimizing interference with the non-human world to a more sustainable level. This, of course, will take time to implement. Strategies will need to be put into place, but more importantly, there needs to be awareness of the seriousness of the situation. As time passes, and as efforts to rectify the situation are inadequate, the rate of extinction of species will vastly increase. The fifth principle touches on the fact that humans have modified the Earth, and they'll most likely continue to do so. It focuses on the issue that to what extent will there interference be with the non-human world? It sheds light on the importance of preservation and extending areas of wilderness and near wilderness because of the factor it plays in the biosphere as it allows continued evolutionary speciation of animals and plants. The sixth principle touches on the fact that there is a prestige in vast consumption and waste. The implementation of deep changes requires global actions to increase significantly. Governments of industrial societies try to spread awareness through third world countries that seem uninterested in improving ecological measures. As a result, additional weight is given to support global action through non-governmental international organizations. The seventh principle focuses on quality of life and the understanding of what entails of achieving this quality. Our next question is as to whether we possess the fundamental knowledge and ability to quantify adequately what is involved in the quality of life. The realization of knowing this will help determine that following a life that constantly requires an increase in the standard of living is not exactly ideal. Lastly, the eighth principle focuses on the fact that there is an obligation in following the prior principles directly or indirectly. Others may have a different take on each principle, but what's important is acknowledging deep ecology in whichever way makes sense to you, and to create your own process that you can follow, develop, and implement. The other principles can essentially be used as a guide to create your own foundation. Arnes believed that modern society has lost touch with an important part of human experience. He further mentions how individuals in society require a sense of relationship to something that is greater than their personality or ego. Environmental ethics stem from how we experience the natural world, and in order for us to experience this, the self must be forgotten in order to connect the greater self and feel united. This he calls self-realization, that of which is not of the individual self, but that which is connected to an infinite whole. The nature experience can be seen as transformative of the self that is connected to the universe. Arnes refers to this as ecological enlightenment, one of which created the curiosity and openness for discussion. He believed that this was essential to the vision relating to the influence of deep ecology. The last topic that we'll be talking about in regard to this philosophy is identification. And Arnaz defines identification as a process through which the interests of another being are reacted to as our own interests. We cannot isolate our interests from those of the natural world, as we do not possess the ability to be isolated from nature, especially if we are unavoidably a part of the natural world. This can further be extended in meaning that wholly or partially the natural world is an extension of the self. He further explains that through the process of identification, to lead to the idea of self-realization, which primarily widens and deepens ourselves, we can achieve everything that is accomplished through duty, self-sacrifice, consideration of others, and more. He also believed that we can identify with nature both individually and collectively, and this is because identification can extend to entities. These entities can be as diverse as landscapes, species, individuals, ecosystems, or more. It doesn't matter the sort of identification that is at issue. We still possess the ability to identify and feel concern for both individually and collectively. Now that I've discussed the essence of Arnaz's environmental philosophy by explaining the eight principles of deep ecology and talking about the process of identification and the idea of self-realization, I'm going to bring you back to the beginning of this video. I'd like you to ask yourself this question again. Do you feel like human beings are more important than other life forms? If your answer is no, ask yourself these other questions. Do you know what the consequences are of non-human life forms decreasing? What does quality of life mean to you? And does your quality of life take Arnaz's philosophy into consideration? And lastly, what can you do now in support of the deep ecology movement? This brings us to the end of this video. I thank you for listening and I look forward to your questions.